get paranoid whenever I'm wearing this microphone ahead of time. I have to put it on because it takes a village to get it through my hair and around my earrings. But I'm always paranoid that it's on during worship, and Mark Mackin is going to be like, halt the worship. There's a voice out there that does not belong, and it's going to be mine. It's like, is it off? I keep asking, are you sure it's not turned on? It's not turned on, right? But here's the thing. I have this new motto in my life, and I'm using it a lot right now, and I'm 50, and I can do what I want. I can do whatever I want. I can put on my workout clothes and not go work out. I can eat Oreos for breakfast and go to Starbucks instead and give me a double shot and put half and half in it, because I can do whatever I want. I can dance and sing all around my house because I want to. I don't know why God put a desire so deep within me to sing and to dance, but put the clumsiest person inside this body and put something in my mouth that when it comes out, it's not even close to resembling music. It's not even close. I'm like, God, why did you do that? So I know that when I get to heaven, I'm gonna have a dance floor, I'm gonna have some moves and some grooves, and I'm gonna sing. I'm gonna have a karaoke machine, and I'm gonna sing because I want to, and it's gonna be extra. It's gonna be really good when I get to heaven because I can do what I want to. And I wanna talk to you guys about that today, about being able to do what you want to. There's a couple of scriptures in the Bible found in Corinthians, in 1 Corinthians 6 and again in 1 Corinthians 10 that says, everything is permissible. That's good news. It's good news for all of you. You can do what you want to. You can go to school. You cannot go to school. You can go to work. You don't have to go to work if you don't want to. You don't even have to come to church. I think some of you guys got that message today before I ever even said those words because you're not here. I think it's funny sometimes the excuses and the things that people say about why they can't come to church. People will say, I'm tired. That Sunday morning is my only time to rest. It's the only time that I have to rest. You can binge watch something on Netflix Tuesday and Thursday night and get to work the next day, but Sunday mornings from 10 to 12 is the only time you have to rest. I get it. We're tired. You can do what you want to. People will say, well, it's raining. I can't go to church. Or you wake up and it's not raining, but it was supposed to rain. And in your mind, you've already thought it was going to rain, so I'm not going to go to church. So I guess I'm just going to stay home and do what I'm going to do. Or people are like, I don't feel that good. I have a cough. I think I might have to stay home from church. You can do what you want to. Sunday morning might be the only time that's best for you to get some rest. But here's the thing. You not coming to church, not worshiping, not serving, means that somebody else, somewhere, is not being served. You see, you can do whatever you want to, but it matters what you do. These scriptures that it tells us in Corinthians, I love them so much. In chapter 6, it says everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. It's not all beneficial, and I will not be mastered by anything. See, some of us are being mastered by our own self-imposed conditions. In 1 Corinthians, in chapter 10, it says this. It says everything, it's 10:23, everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible, but not everything is constructive. Nobody should seek his own good, but should seek the good of others. I looked up a few other versions of this. I love to look up different versions and what they say. A couple other versions say all things are legitimate, but all things are not constructive. It might be legit, totally legit for you, but that does not make it constructive. Even another version says we can do anything we please, but not all things are helpful. They're not all helpful. I will not be mastered by anything. And nobody should seek his own good, but seek the good of others. And I love this version the most of all. It's in the Passion Translation, and it says this. It says, it might be permissible, but not everything promotes growth in others. We're allowed to do anything we choose, but not everything causes spiritual advancement of others. So, don't always seek what is best for you at the expense of another. It might be best for you to stay home and get some rest, but choosing not to serve someone somewhere is not being served. You see, you can do anything you want, but it will always matter what you do. Always will matter. I want to tell you about a woman that I have been reading about here in the Bible. And I love it so much because I can relate a lot to this woman. But it's a woman who is found to be living out of her condition. And it's found in Luke chapter 10. And it says this. Or it's Luke 13:10. On a Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues. And a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and she could not straighten up at all. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward and he said to her, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." And then he put his hands on her and immediately she straightened up and she praised God. Father, I come to you right now in this moment and I just want to open up this service to you, Father, and open up your word that it might go deep within our hearts today, Lord Jesus, that each and every person in this place would receive what it is that you have for them today. Be here with us, Father, in this service. May your presence be here with us today. You see, there is something about this woman. She was crippled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over. She could not straighten up at all. Can you imagine living your life bent over? She's bent over. She's like this. She cannot straighten up at all. If you live your life bent over for 18 years, your world would be so small. She had to fix her circumstance to fit her condition because she was bent over. She can't stand up. She would have walked into her kitchen and had a small table. She would have had small cupboards to get to her coffee cup. She would have had a small way to get to her food and a small bed and small chairs. Her world would have been small because she's bent over and she couldn't straighten up at all. And I'm here to say today, because I know if it's true of me, it has to be true of other people. There are so many of us, we're living bent over, stuck in our own self-imposed conditions. Oh, I'm not talking about a physical condition that's keeping you so bent over that you cannot even straighten up. I'm talking about a being bent over on the inside. You see, there are things that keep us bent over and they cause lots of excuses in our life, maybe even seemingly harmless excuses. You know how when your kids are little and you've got your kids with you and they can talk, but you're holding them and another adult might come up and say something to your child and your child is like, or they hide behind your leg, or they're like, dipping themselves back and they don't want to say anything. And then as a parent, you're like, oh, she's just shy. Don't worry about her. She's not going to talk. She's just shy. Who did that? We probably all did. If you're a parent, you did that. You make the excuses for your kids and it's seemingly fine. But what happens when that person grows up? That girl grows up and she becomes, uses that excuse. Oh, I can't do this. I'm shy. Oh, I don't talk to people. I'm shy. I'm scared. I don't have to do those kinds of things because I'm shy. We like the excuses that we get to make. And again, they seem pretty simple, but we'll do them. There's lots of self-imposed conditions in our life that are causing us to feel bent over. Things like fear. It's a big one for me. What about anxiety or worry or depression or addictions, or your marriage is crumbling and you're afraid to let people know about it? You're struggling with alcoholism, or you're stuck looking at inappropriate things on your computer or your phone. You're living bent over. You're keeping your world small because you have these self-imposed hidden conditions in your life. Or what about giving? That's a big one, that can keep you bent over. Well, you don't understand, I can't give. I live paycheck to paycheck. I don't have enough money to be able to give anything more. Do you know that you're living your life small because God isn't blessing and expanding your world because you're not trusting him to be able to give? I didn't ask her permission, but I don't think she's gonna mind if I share this story. So I'm gonna share a story that I saw yesterday about Shakinda. She was with me when I got to go to a Teen Challenge banquet, and it was, so good. The girls were there and giving some of their testimonies, and it was a fundraiser. See, what many of you know about Shakinda, she's a single mom. She has 2 kids. I know that she lives paycheck to paycheck. She works very hard, but things are not always easy. When we were sitting there, and at the end of our banquet yesterday, they gave everybody an opportunity to give, and I watched her give a gift. I don't know what it was. I just watched her give a gift. And then they had a table set up afterwards where you could purchase some things that the girls at Teen Challenge had made. And if you made that purchase, it went and it helped fund their programs. Because see, everybody goes to Teen Challenge and they don't have the hindrance if money is an issue. They get to go anyways. So it has to be completely funded. And I watched her buy a gift for someone. And she's that way. I have a llama cookie jar to prove that she thinks about other people and gives good gifts. And she gives anyways, not because she's sitting at home thinking, I can't give because then I won't have anything. I give, and I'm watching God expand and grow her world because she's able to do that. You see, you can do anything you want. You can give if you want to, or you cannot give, but it matters what you do. What about being the type of person that lives in worry all of the time? I get it. There's a lot of things in this world to worry about. You're worried about your job. You're worried about your kids. You're worried about what's going to happen in their life and how things are going to work out. But do you know that you can be the type of person that worries so much? There's absolutely nothing within you that can offer any amount of peace to somebody else around you that might also be worried. You're taking up so much space for yourself and your own worries. There's no room for you to be a source of peace for anybody else. What about those of you that are struggling with the hidden things in your life, with addictions? I can't serve in that church because what if I show up and people find out that I'm actually using alcohol every day as a way to cope and get through my life? What if they find that out? What if by taking the time to show up at church and serve, what if it takes too much time away from the secret things that I'm doing or seeing or want to do? What if all of those things? You see, it matters. It matters so much what you do. Or here's my favorite one of all as an excuse that we make. What about, I'm just too busy. I'm just so busy. Busy is, I don't like busy. If I had $1 for every moment somebody within the last couple of years came up to me and said, I know you're busy, but could you blah, 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 blah. I can tell you that even happened to me last week. I know you're busy, but. I'm like, I don't need you all to tell me I'm busy. I know I'm busy. And I'm not up here trying to look busy. I'm not doing the things I'm doing in my life so that everybody will think I'm busy. At the end of my life, here lies Lisa Goins. She was busy. Okay, busy is not necessarily a good thing. I get it. You have family. You have things going on in your family. You have pressures in your job. You have Valentine boxes to make for your kids. Oh my goodness. I am so thankful that I did not raise my kids in a Pinterest generation because I was just blown away by the mass and scope of these amazing Valentine boxes that were showing up on Facebook that parents were making for their kids for their parties. I'm thinking if you're looking for a new business to get into, be like a mom that will make things like that for other mothers like me who cannot make those kind of things, who barely scraped an old used shoebox together. I mean, just this past Valentine's Day, I don't even make things for kids anymore. I'm an empty nester. I can do what I want. I don't have to do that. But my husband bought me a t-shirt for Valentine's Day that was that Mothers Against School Projects Club, because I'm still like, man, I am just against it. But there are so many, it's just not my giftedness. It's not what I have within me to do because, I'm busy. There's lots to do with 4 kids. But here's the thing about being busy. I can't find anything in this word, nothing in this word that says to us, I designed you. I created you to be so busy that you have 0 time in your life, 0 space to serve other people. I created you that way. As a matter of fact, it says the exact opposite. Over 300 times, 320 something times, it says in this word, I created you to serve people, to serve me, to serve others. You can do anything you want. It's all permissible, but it's not all beneficial. Don't seek the good for yourself, but seek to do good for other people. You can stay busy. You can do whatever you want in your busyness. You can do what you want to do, but it matters what you do. I love how the Message puts this scripture, and this is what it says. It says, anything goes. Anything goes. Can you imagine living your life? Anything goes. I mean, fill my pantry with Oreos, M&Ms, and extra hot coffee. That's really all I need. Anything goes. But because of God's immense generosity and grace, our foremost effort should be to help others live well. Wow. How do you help others live well? You do it by serving people, by making yourself available to other people, even amidst the internal things that you're dealing with in your own life. You can stay small and bent over and living your life in your self-imposed conditions of fear and anxiety and worry and all of the different things. But God is here to tell you today, I did not create you to live small. I didn't make you that way. I get it. I get it that you're dealing with some difficult things, but I am the one that is here to get you through those things, not just for you, but for the benefit of other people. Many of you would say, yeah, but you don't know. You don't know my story. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know what I'm dealing with. Do you know that your story and how Jesus brought you through it is your single greatest asset to serve somebody else? It's the single greatest asset that you have in your life to fulfill this commandment that he's telling us to serve other people. It's your story, but you want to stay hidden. You don't want people to know about your story. I'm telling you, it's time for your stories to get out. It's time for you to quit living in your small world and stand up and share your story for the benefit of somebody else. I love how the sun came out this week and something changes in me. A happiness arises when the sun comes out and it warms up just a little bit. And it's funny, how that saying, it's like, sun's out, guns out, or sun's out, buns out. I don't know how it goes. I just know I saw a lot more skin this week. I mean, people in cut off some flip-flops. I'm like, hold up, it is not summer. It is spring and it is warming up. But I was seeing lots of stuff. But do you know what happens when your story is out? It's like your story's out, the glory is out. Because God will get the glory from your story. But you gotta let your story out. The story's out, God's glory is out. He so wants every single bit of the glory of getting you through your story so that your story can be used for the benefit of serving other people. There's no reason why God got you through everything that he did for you to love him, to worship him, and sit and do nothing else with it. That's not it, or we wouldn't have so many scriptures that tell us instead of doing nothing to serve, to look to the needs of other people, that our foremost efforts should be to help other people live well. I learned this lesson the hard way, I have to say. This crippled woman, I'm reading about her today because I can identify her so much. So I had to name her in my Bible. I had to name her, and this is what it says. On the Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues, and a woman named Lisa was there. She had been crippled by a spirit of fear for 18 years. She was bent over and she could not straighten up at all. And when Jesus saw her, he called her forward and he said to her, Lisa, you are set free from your infirmity. And then he put his hands on her. And immediately she straightened up her life and she praised God. You see, I did the math of my life when I was thinking back about my life. And I spent all of my life from when I can remember being younger, trying to remain hidden, trying to show up places, just pretending like I could fit in, trying to hide the fact that, I was growing up in a family dealing with lots of alcoholism and dysfunction and divorces and exposed to drugs and seemingly and abuse and lots of things until I arrived in high school. But then in high school, something changed. It would have been about 1985 or 1986, you see, because I'm 50 and I'm doing what I want. So you guys don't even have to try and do the math in your head about how old I am. I put it out there. But I did that math. And from about that time of graduating high school to it all the way through college and several years into my marriage till 2004 would have been about 18 years. And I lived that entire time with a spirit of fear constricting every single decision that I made in my life. I allowed myself to think I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that, all because of fear. And it started in that journey of when I was walking away from God. It was in high school. I couldn't blame it on anything I had been through in my past. Not one thing. I could look at the decisions that I was making in my life, the things that I was deciding to do, and so ashamed and just trying to find my way. And I would get through college, and then when I got married, I just began to try and hide. What if everybody finds out what I've done? Not what's been done to me, but what about the choices that I made? And I got to keep that stuff hidden. So I can't put two sentences together to talk to people because what if they find out? No, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I can't get up and I can't say a word on stage because no, I'm afraid. And then in 2004, about 18 years later, Kelly and I were at a conference, and it was so good. And I just remember hearing a message and having that feeling in my life that, Lisa, you're going to have to step out of this. God has something in your life that he wants to do through you. And then I found myself walking side by side with someone who I somehow was saying something about just being afraid. I really don't do that much in my church because I just, I'm not really very gifted and I don't like to do that kind of thing. I don't like to talk to people. And I remember someone looking straight at me and saying, Lisa, this is your time. You've got to do it. And it was that very next Sunday when we came back to church that Kelly began to say, would you just get up on stage and say hi to people? It's really all I want you to do. Just stand up there and say, hi, good morning, welcome to church. And then you can exit off the stage. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I guess I can do that. I can just say hi to people. Okay, now when you get up there today, he'd hand me a sticky note for the day. I want you to say hi to people. I want you to tell them good morning. I want you to welcome them to church. And then I want you to read this scripture. Okay, all right, what scripture am I going to read? Okay. All right, I can do that. And he just began to ask me every day, and he would put it in my hand right before church would start. Not enough time for me to get out of it because he would give it to me and he would turn around and go on to do something else, and I was just expected that I was going to go and do that. But it began to push me away. It was God slowly beginning to get me out of my bent up condition and straighten up my life. You see, I had lived so long trying to stay hidden, making sure people didn't get to know the real me, the real story. Last week, Kelly threw in an old girlfriend story, so I thought I should be able to throw one in. I don't know, it just came to me. It's hard because there's just been so many, but I had some boyfriends, a few, before I met the love of my life, whom I love so very much. But I I ended every relationship that I was in. I ended it. And you know when I ended it? I ended it at the point where someone was just about to get too close. Someone was just about to find out the real me. Someone was just about to find out what I had been hiding. Someone was just about to get to know that. And until I remember a night sitting with Kelly, and he was asking me some questions and needing to know some things about my life. And it was the first time in my life where I dumped it all out there. I fully expected him to run. And instead, he put his arms around me and does what he always so lovingly does and said, I'm sorry you had to go through that. I'm sorry I wasn't there with you when those things were happening. I'm sorry I didn't come into your life sooner. He didn't run away. He ran to me. He did run see a professional counselor for a short time to get over the fact that he thought he was falling in love and about to marry not the woman that he ever expected to marry, but the complete opposite. But the counselor worked him through it, and here we are today, almost 26 years, happily married. But I had to take that step out of my fear and open up and begin to share my story with someone. Otherwise, I could have spent the rest of my life running from every significant relationship in my life. You can spend the rest of your life running from every significant relationship that somebody else needs from you. Somebody needs you to show up for them. Somebody needs to know that they're not the only one. And the only way they can do that is if you will stand up and say, my story is out. And God is going to get the glory for that as we come side by side with each other, serving together. You can do whatever you want to do. You don't have to put your story out. But I'm here to tell you, it matters so much what you do. In this scripture, it says this. It says, when Jesus saw her, he called her forward. You know, she was crippled, bent over for 18 years. Man, I know what it's like to be in bondage to something so long. But she was crippled, and Jesus was speaking in the synagogue. He was speaking in the synagogue that day. So here's the thing. She would have been so far in the back. All the Pharisees would have had the front row. The teachers of the law would have been the ones in there that were right here in Jesus' eyesight. Not only would have she have been in the back where the crippled and the outcasts were because they really weren't a part of the functions and the things that were happening in the synagogue. She was in the back and she was bent over. But it specifically says in the Word of God that Jesus saw her and he called her forward. You know what? Jesus sees you. He sees you from week to week sitting in your seat feeling so small. He sees you feeling small and insignificant because of the things that you're going through. He sees you and he's calling you forward. He's saying, I didn't create you to live small or bent over with any kind of condition. I created you to not be small, but to stand tall in who you are in me. And I am here to tell you today, you take your spot from the back. He's calling you forward. And I know it's hard. It would have been a long journey for that woman from the back to the front. It would have been so long, and she wouldn't have even really been able to see him until she got there because she's bent over. Her world is small. But when she got there, the only way for the power of who Jesus was to arrive in her life was when she allowed herself to get there. And it says he laid his hands on her and she was straightened up. You see, it tells us in Psalm 3:3 that he is a shield around us. He bestows his glory on us, and he is the lifter of our heads. He didn't leave us to be bent over, looking down only in our own little world, and this is me, and this is all I can take care of, and this is what I can do because of this and this and this. He says, no, I created you, and I'm calling you forward to live your life standing tall, to serve other people. And it doesn't matter how small you are, how young you are. It doesn't matter how small you are or how small you feel. God has something for each and every one of you to do. It says in Hebrews to run the race marked out for you. There's a race. It's already been marked out for you, and it's a race that only you can run. And it's a race that only you can win because it's your race. There's lots of runners, but they're all running their own races. There's one for you, and you, and you, and you are the only winner, and you're gonna have to stop consulting your fear instead of your faith anytime you get that feeling that you need to step out and do something. I know because I consulted my fears for so many years. I would ask my fear, can we do this? No, it's gonna be way too hard. No, don't do this. There's way too many unknowns. Just keep yourself small and hidden and safe where you'll be comfortable. You see, we don't like to be uncomfortable. We don't like the unknowns in our life. We are the only people that are so stricken by needing to know the outcome of something before we can even take a step because we don't like the unknown things that might happen, the what ifs. Just recently, I was flying on a plane and I was leaving California, and I remember being on the plane and looking out the window, and it was blue sky, and I could see the ocean, and it was just so pretty. And I was thinking, oh, I know I have somewhere else I need to go, and I need to get home, but it's hard to leave this place because it's so pretty, and I'm just watching out my window and the oceans, and I could see some mountains. And then all of a sudden, we hit this patch of clouds, and it's all clouds. And I'm flying, I'm like, it's just everything's white outside the window, and I cannot see a thing. And I'm just flying through the clouds, and I can't see anything. And I thought about the pilots who are up there. They can't see anything. But what pilots don't do is they don't abandon their flight plan because they're in some clouds and they don't know the way. They trust the path that they're on, and they keep going forward. And you know what? If you'll stop consulting your fear and start consulting your faith instead, when you ask your faith, can we do this? Yes, we can. Is it gonna be hard? You bet. It's gonna have some difficult moments. But if you will trust me in the cloudy moments, I promise to stick with you and be at your side until the proper time when everything becomes clear to you. You see, that plane at some point bursts from those clouds and you can see again, and it lands you safely on the ground. God is not taking you to places so that he can leave you wondering and in all this unknown area to burst you forth and say, ha, tricked you never belonged here in the first place. He's saying, no, if you'll trust me and who I am in you in those moments where you cannot see a thing, I promise I'm sticking with you by your side. And when we burst forth, you're gonna see that it was all worth it, and I've placed you in the exact place where I want you to be. You know, again, it doesn't matter how small you are or how young you are. He has something for you to do. You can consult your fear or you can consult your faith. You can do whichever one you want, but it matters what you do. I want to read you a story, a portion of a story. Let me find it in here. Of a little girl, and her name is Hattie. Hattie was alive in the late 1800s. She was a 7-year-old little girl who late 1800s, she was very poor. She lived across the street from a church, and she would walk over to this church on Sundays to be a part of the church. And so I'm going to read you a portion of a sermon that many years later, it was about 1912, that the pastor of the church wrote about this little girl, Hattie, and about his experience with her. And it says this. He was talking about his church. It was a small church, and it was crowded. Tickets of admission were obtained sometimes weeks in advance for every service. The late 1800s, they had to give tickets for people to go to church. Can you imagine? Let it be. Let it happen that we have people waiting outside to get a ticket for admission to come in and see what God is doing in this place. Wow, I was blown away by that part of the story. Weeks in advance for the service. The Sunday school was as crowded as the rest of the congregation. And one day, when I came down to church to attend the Sunday school, I found a number of children outside. They were greatly disturbed because they couldn't get in on account of the crowd of the children that were already in those Sunday school rooms. And it was there that I saw that little Hattie Mae Wyatt was standing there. She lived nearby. She always brought her books, and she brought an offering, which would have been a penny or two. I was reading. And it said, I knew Hattie. I scooped her up in my arms, and I lifted her on my shoulder to carry her into Sunday school that day. And then as she held onto my head, and it was an embrace I could never forget, I carried her through the crowd in a hall and into the Sunday school room where I seated her kind of back away in a corner because I knew that she needed to be there. Well, then the next day, when I was walking out on the sidewalk, I saw Hattie, and she was going to school. And it says, Hattie, this is the pastor talking to this little girl, Hattie, we are going to have a larger Sunday school room soon. And she said, I hope you will. It's just so crowded, and I'm afraid to be in there all alone. And then the pastor says, when we get the money with which to erect a building, we're going to construct one large enough to get all the little children in. And we're going to begin it very soon to raise the money for it. And then he goes on to say, it was only in my mind as a kind of imaginary vision, but I just wished to make some conversation with this child. You know, Hattie from her poor family across the street, she loved that church when I read about her. And she was 7 years old, but then just a few weeks shy of her 8th birthday, Hattie Mae came down with pneumonia. She was stricken with pneumonia, and then she passed away just before her 8th birthday. And the pastor of the church was called in by the parents to do a funeral. And when the pastor of the church came in, the mom presented the pastor with this little bag. And inside the bag, it had a note. And inside this bag were 57 pennies and a note that said, I've been saving for you to be able to build a Sunday school so all of the kids could get in. 57 pennies. 57 pennies is quite small. But the pastor was so moved by that contribution that he got from little Hattie Mae. 57 pennies in the early 1900s was actually quite a lot of money for a 7-year-old to save, to come up with. But he presented his 57 pennies before his congregation that morning, and he took the 57 pennies and he sold it to his congregation to raise money for funds to have a bigger Sunday school. And out of the 57 pennies that morning, they collected $250 in their church that Sunday morning. And with $250, they were able to buy this little schoolhouse that sat right next to the church, therefore enlarging their Sunday school, and everybody got in. And then that little schoolhouse later would hold some of the first few classrooms of Temple University. And then when it came time to sell that schoolhouse, they were able to sell their church property and that little schoolhouse that they bought for $250 and have funds to build not only a new church, but Temple University and the Good Samaritan Hospital, which is now known as Temple University Hospital, all because of 57 cents of an effort. There's something on this world that was so lasting that affected thousands upon thousands of people's lives. So I have to say, what is your 57-cent effort that you can give? It doesn't matter how small it is, or you're sitting there feeling, I'm so small and insignificant. It's the simplest of simple things in our life. We don't have to go big or go home. We get to show up small and let God show up with us and do whatever it is that he wants to do. And I'm here to tell you today that I'm here because somebody did something for me that was so small and what might seem so insignificant to you. When I was in college, I would have been finishing up about my junior year. I remember, I can see my room, and I can remember laying in my bed on a Saturday night feeling so down and depressed. It was a dark moment in my life. It was on the heels of the worst decisions. They were just all coming at me. I remember thinking, I don't understand the point of going on with this. I can't see any direction that my life is taking me at all. I hadn't been to church probably in 4 or 5 years, and I just was in a deep, dark place. and I fell asleep. And then I was jostled awake on a Sunday morning because my phone rang on a Sunday morning, early on a Sunday morning, as a junior in college. That was just strange in and of itself. But the phone rang, and I answered the phone. And on the other end, there was someone that was saying, "Hey, Lisa, I'm so glad I finally found your phone number. I've been trying to get a hold of you. You see, I just wanted to invite you to church this morning. There are some friends of yours from our old Sunday school class are getting back together, and they're going to be there, and we just really would like for you to be there." Again, this is years. I hadn't been to that place in years. I had friendships there. I had given my heart to the Lord. All of that was true, but I hadn't been in so long. And I hung up the phone, and I remember thinking, I want to go. I want to go to church. I want to go. And something in my heart so gravitated me that I got up from my bed, drove from my apartment in Norman all the way across Oklahoma City to go to church that morning. And let me tell you who it was. Well, actually, let me tell you who it wasn't. It wasn't the pastor of the church that called me that morning. It wasn't even my old youth pastor that called me. You know, it wasn't a paid staff member from the church who was given a list and say, "Hey, I need you to call these people. They haven't been to church in a while." It was an old Sunday school teacher. It was a Sunday school teacher and dad. Someone who had their own wife and family and kids and things to deal with. Someone who certainly had their own busy life, so randomly called me on a Sunday morning and invited me to church. And it was as simple as that. It was that defining moment in my life that started my journey back to God, that started it, that allowed me to end up face to face with my husband and somebody who would fully accept everything that who I was, that would traject me into this life of ministry and this life of being able to stand here, someone who still feels fearful, who but conquers her fears through Christ. It was a simple phone call from a volunteer in a church. So you say you're busy. You say, "I don't really have that much to offer. I don't know if I'm good enough to show up." I'm telling you, the simple things. You can do anything you want, but God is saying it matters what you do. Your phone call, your invite to church could be the very thing that changes the course of someone's life. Father, I love you so very, very much. And I just want to pray right now for the people that are here in this place and in our church. Father, for anyone who would be here today that's struggling with feeling small, that's feeling insignificant, that's feeling like they don't matter, that they're even in a crowd of people, yet they feel like they're not even seen. Father, I pray that they would feel today that you are calling them forward, that you are the one, Lord Jesus, that wants to lift up their heads, that you did not create any of us to live small. So I pray that you would penetrate their hearts and their lives with your love, so that in getting over the things that are causing us to feel small in our life, we can show up and do the little things for other people, to serve in such a way that your name is glorified and it's moved forward. And I pray that over each and every person in this place. You know, I want to spend a few minutes praying for some of you today if you want some prayer. And I know it's hard to say, "I'm feeling a little bit small," or "I'm dealing with this in my life." But the woman who was crippled for 18 years standing in the back of the room had to make a long journey forward, and just look what was waiting for her when she got there. Her new life, her beautiful life, her life where she could stand up straight and tall and be healed. When we're not willing to make a difficult journey and allow God to touch our lives,
how are we expecting him to do the things in our life that we need him to do? So I just want to invite you up. If you want to come forward and pray today, I want to pray for you. And I want to believe as a church that we can get over the things within our life that are holding us back and causing us to make excuses where we're not reaching out and serving other people. The church is still the primary place where people come to know Jesus. They can come to know Jesus in different ways, different places. They can watch on Facebook. They can do lots of different things. But the church is still the primary place where people come to know him. And so I want Mark to just play and sing for a few minutes. And if you want prayer, I just want you to come forward and let some of our church staff, Kelly and I, will be here to pray for you today. Don't waste another minute staying in a bent condition.